A terrified injured worker is discarded by his boss on a Melliha pavement after falling 2 stories on a construction site. Bars and restaurants can stay open longer and welcome more patrons if entry is limited to the vaccinated. And PAOLA mayor has shared photos of children he believes are behind widespread garden vandalism. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo. Yannick here, joined by Johnathan, Cilia, and welcome to Lovin Daily. Today I have a special guest in the studio, Daniel Vella from Rota, who is here to talk to us about cycling in Malta. So stay tuned for that, for the end of the show, for what's set to be a great interview. Before that, the day's top story. John, do you want to walk us through it?
Yeah, a major story that's kind of shocked the nation and kind of shown how much we've valued money over lives in Malta. So a migrant construction worker who fell a number of stories, 2 stories, in a building site in Melliha, was discarded on the side of the road by his boss. So this man, who's a 32-year-old Ghanaian man, was found near the athletic park in Selmoon in Melliha. It's a very quiet area, and he was found literally on the side of the road, on the pavement, covered in dust by some passers-by. The people who found him, immediately called up the authorities, and they asked him kind of what was happening. And the man was begging not to be taken to jail, explaining that he had stepped on a wooden plank, fallen off, fell 2 stories, hurt his back. And when he told his boss allegedly told him, listen, I'm going to take you to the hospital. Let's go in the van and I'll take you right now. Only to be taken to Selmoon and left on the side of the road. Love Malta broke the story earlier today, and we released some footage as well from the scene, and you can hear the man literally begging, pleading. It's quite heartbreaking to police officers not to be taken in. And why is he begging and pleading? Apparently he was working without a permit, which actually might lead to why the contractor or developer would make such a crazy move to leave an injured worker on the side of the road. Since then, all of Malta has reacted, and police officers have actually called in a man and not arrested him, called him in to talk to him. So we don't know as of yet if he's the developer, a contractor, or someone in the vicinity with some more information. But this is a shocking story, a real shocking story. We've literally dehumanized a worker, left him on the side of the road in an injured, possibly severely injured situation, and all for what? So we don't lose some jobs or something?
Yeah, a very shocking story. In fact, you can even tell from the reactions, I think within 1 hour of the incident occurring. Leader of the opposition, former president, Home Affairs Minister, the Prime Minister have all sort of condemned the act. Unions, activists, NGOs, we've had lawyers getting in touch to ask how they can help the guy. It really is one of these stories that has struck a nerve across the whole country, and to be honest, there aren't really words to describe the cruelty in just leaving someone there in so much pain. I can't even imagine what the guy thought was going to happen. After like what happens there, and just leave a guy on the pavement. As John said, the police seem to be speaking to someone. They've also identified the construction site, or at least the road where the construction site is situated. So hopefully we'll have some updates later this evening, and justice will be served.
We'll definitely be following up this story 100%.
So on to our second story. Health Minister Chris Fearn announced this morning a number of changes to Malta's COVID-19 regulations. Basically he announced a number of the relaxation of a number of measures related to bars and restaurants. So though not a mandatory requirement, a number of bars and restaurants have opted to limit entry to their establishments to people who are vaccinated. And basically what the Deputy Prime Minister said was that these bars and restaurants will be allowed to relax their measures. The measures that can be relaxed are the following. So the distance between tables will go down from 2 meters to 1.5 meters if inside, or 1 meter if outside. And tables can have up to 8 people seated at them. So it's an increase of 2 from the 6. They'll also be able to stay open up until 3 a.m. and will also be allowed to have a limited bar service. So the way it will work is that operators will have to get in touch with the authorities to inform them that this is their intention, and then they'll be able to start with the relaxed measures as of next week. In order to qualify, bars and restaurants will need to ensure that all their workers are vaccinated, and they'll also have to check that the patrons coming in are in possession of a vaccine certificate. And during the same press conference, Deputy Prime Minister also announced that Malta will, as of tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, start recognizing the vaccine certificates from Malaysia, Rwanda and Saudi Arabia. And he also announced that as of next week, Malta will recognize vaccine certificates issued to people who have only had one dose of the vaccine because they've previously had COVID. Many European countries only administer one vaccine, one dose, to people who have recovered from COVID-19. And even though they are in possession of a vaccine certificate, it's been quite difficult for them to enter the country. In fact, they've had to quarantine. So this is all about to change. It looks like it's under control.
Absolutely. This is definitely a step in the right direction. I'm very, very happy to see, kind of restaurants and bars, some of the hardest hit establishments and businesses in Malta as well as globally amidst this pandemic. So, opening till 3 a.m., that's quite good. Let's be clear, right now there are 370 active COVID-19 cases in Malta. Over the last 24 hours, 13 cases were found. And schools are actually set to reopen tomorrow, right? Yep. So a lot of school children will be going back to school, masks on tomorrow. So, my heart does kind of go out to all the teachers who are going to have to deal with students as young as 3 years old forced to wear a mask for up to 9 hours. So I don't know how that's going to play out. I know my niece has her first day of school tomorrow. I don't know if she's going to be keeping her mask on for 9 hours. So really, my heart goes out to the teachers. Hopefully over the next coming weeks and months, as long as the numbers do not rise again, we start seeing more mitigation measures removed. Moving to the third story, talking about children actually. The mayor of PAOLA has actually released footage and images of a number of youths who he believes are behind a series of vandalism incidents in the area. So Mayor Dominic Grima took to Facebook, sharing these images, and in the images you can see youth seemingly removing rocks from rubble walls, from girnas as well. In another image it seems that a boy rips apart a pipe and sprays water everywhere. And Dominic Grima wanted to raise awareness because he was saying, listen, every time I bring this up to the police, every time I bring this up to locals, they just tell me the same thing. They're just kids. And he believes we need to get beyond this they are just kids mentality. He actually said, quote, whether they are Maltese or not, their parents need to be responsible for their children and for the damage their children have caused. So, I don't know what you make of this. They do seem to be quite young. However, if it's a consistent, regular thing that he's seeing as a mayor, what do you expect him to do,
No, he's right, and I do understand the point that, kids and it's the folly of youth, and you kind of do stupid things when you're a kid. I myself have been guilty of my fair share of instances like this. But that being said, as the mayor said, it is important for parents to be alerted and for them to kind of have a word with these kids. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not really about, well, I mean, if a punishment is required, then yes, by all means they should be punished, but especially if they're quite young, it's about kind of showing them how their actions have consequences, and about the importance of taking care of our localities and our kind of shared living environment. So, the next story is about ARP. A number of residents are up in arms over a proposal to convert a stretch of ODZ land into a road and an accompanying residential area. So, an application has been submitted that seeks to change the zoning of the area from outside the development zone to a residential area, and to connect Tri Birbuba and Tri Patri Albert Caruana in an area known as Tal Mawa. So if accepted, the application will not only see the road built, but it will also see land on either side of the roads converted into a residential area, which means that anyone owning land along this new road will be entitled to build apartments, houses, according to the relevant policies. So the application still needs to be decided upon. However, many residents have got in touch with Lovin Malta to vent their frustration and the disappointment at the proposal. Obviously, people's concerns relate mainly to the fact that ODZ land tends to keep being taken up, and ODZ is not necessarily ODZ, most people feel. They also feel that this would set a precedent and would result in kind of more and more development in an area which is a green area. The local council has organized a meeting for residents over the last couple of days, and it remains to be seen how the application will develop. As we said, it has not yet been decided, so hopefully this application will be rejected and residents' pleas heard.
And on the topic of fields, and moving on to the final story, a beloved safe haven for abandoned animals that are actually housed in fields in MARSASKALA have taken to Facebook to announce that they are getting evicted. They have 3 months left to find a new home. So this is the Sunshine Animal Sanctuary. We actually had announced them a few months back when they had opened, so they're quite a new sanctuary, and they're desperately seeking a new place to call home and take their rescues with them. Now, what's interesting about the sanctuary is that they take in a lot of farm animals, which isn't very typical for sanctuaries. They don't actually have too many cats and dogs. They have pigs, they have rabbits, they have ducks, and this kind of, extracurricular animals, as it were. So definitely check out their Facebook, because they've got some incredible cute photos as well. But more importantly than that, if you know of a field or an area that could be suitable for a sanctuary anywhere in Malta, do get in contact with Sunshine Animal Sanctuary. They are quite desperate. They're doing a good thing. It's a good cause. Like I said, not many people take in farm animals, abandoned and abused farm animals. They do, so we definitely want to help them out and maybe find a new location for them.
Definitely.
That brings us to the end of the first half of today's episode. We're going to cut to a quick video now. When we're back, we're going to have Daniel Vella from Rota to speak to us about the cycling situation in modern Malta. And we're back on Lovin Daily. Today we've got a special guest in the building, Daniel Vella from Rota. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me.
This evening, as it were. We've got Lovin Daily 2.0. So Rota, if you are not aware, is a cycling community group that's all about, raising issues, concerns, as well as problems that the cycling community is facing in Malta. Now, the cycling community is probably one of the most misunderstood, probably unfairly maligned communities as well, even though what they're doing is essentially a good thing, both for themselves physically as well as for the nation, right? Mm-hmm. So, I really wanted to speak to you about kind of the fact that Malta is developing all its roads, from Attard to wherever you go. It seems like every road's being built up. For cyclists, are these new roads a good thing?
So, it depends. The answer always depends. But, investment in infrastructure is beneficial for a nation. However, unfortunately, we're seeing that most of the roads that we are seeing that are being built up, like the Central Link, for example, are increasing the amount of lanes in the roads, but increasing them just for cars. And the sort of the bicycle infrastructure is like an afterthought in these projects. Unfortunately, what this ends up the situation. at the end of the day ends up being that's a cyclist. So this person on a bicycle who is exposed to all the elements and all the things that can happen is thrown into this jungle of cars and chaos in these huge roads. So the size of the roads that are being built are quite intimidating for the cyclist when the cycling infrastructure is an afterthought. So if it's just a lane on the side of the road. However, if we were to have like a protected bicycle lane inside these roads, then it would be okay.
So you're talking about protected bicycle lanes, like in Aldomoro Road?
Yes. That is as an example.
So they had built like a bit of a yay-high barrier wall kind of thing. So is that kind of the kind of design you'd like to see more widespread across Maltese roads?
Yes. So when it comes to bicycle lanes, there are sort of like these 4 levels. So you have the sharrows, which is basically all the roads in Malta where the road can have both bicycles and cars, but there is no dedicated infrastructure. Then you have the bicycle lane, which is just a painted section of the road with no protection. Then you have the protected bicycle lane, which basically is like the one you mentioned, which has the protection between cars, which helps a lot to make cyclists feel safe on the road.
Imagine,
yeah. And then you have the protected bicycle lane, which is basically a complete separation from the roads.
Okay, do we have any of those in Malta?
Just one. Not necessarily. Most of them, I regard them as protected, as just segregated.
I see.
But yes, we have one.
So should Malta continue to focus on building more road infrastructure?
I think if we were to invest in more infrastructure, it shouldn't be dedicated, like sort of dedicated towards cars only, and then having all the other things as an afterthought. So I think if we are investing in infrastructure, we need to look at more, to think more of the future, because there's this thing called induced demand. So if you widen the roads, cars will just fill it up eventually. If not now, in a year. If not in a year, in 2 years. So it's just going to keep happening.
Very right.
So
talking about the future, the metro, this is a topic that keeps coming up. Every week, every month, we've got people contacting us, speaking about it. It seems like there's polls and politicians talking about it. The cycling community, how do they feel about the metro?
Okay, so I think the cycling community is very accepting of investing in public transport. I mean, it's beneficial. It will reduce eventually the amount of cars in the roads. And when you reduce the amount of cars in the road, that sort of like gives us more safety in the roads. However, the metro, it involves quite a huge and substantial investment. Not to mention space, which is a very limiting factor in Malta, because it needs space, like we need space to build the metro system. And other than the metro itself, we also need sort of like the adjacent infrastructure, like you need wider pavements for people to wait for the metro and stuff like that. So, I mean, space is one of our most limiting assets in Malta, so we need to take that into consideration. However, yes, I think a metro will be, I think it's a very beneficial discussion at this point.
So, a lot of people, they'll, as you said, you'll see a bicycle, squished up against a wall or whatever it is, with trucks and cars passing by, oftentimes at high speeds. It seems legitimately intimidating, scary, life-threatening, Why would you put yourself at risk for this?
I think it comes down to first of all, safety is the biggest issue we have in Malta. I mean, we've done research on this. University of Malta has done research on this, and safety is always the number one issue with cycling. However, I think it comes down to the sort of the trade-off between the benefits and the risk. As in, for me personally, I find that the time I save with using a bicycle and the way I feel after using a bicycle, I'm benefiting my health. I reduce my stress from the uncertainty about the time of arrival at the destination. I know I'm contributing to a better environment at the end of the day. Not that it makes much of a difference with just one cyclist going through the traffic, but every job counts.
Absolutely. Listen, I had done a period studying and living in Holland, and over there bikes are widely accepted.
Bicycle heaven.
It's incredible. You actually get a bit of a brain shock when you return back to Malta and you just see no more bicycle lanes and cars everywhere. So a place like Holland, it's very flat. It's not very hot. So I want to lead into my final question. A lot of Malta's geographical realities, the heat, the hills, not even talking about the traffic, just talking about the geography, put a lot of people off from cycling. So how would you respond to these critics, that bring up Malta itself as a reason not to cycle?
So this is always the two main points which people bring up, like the heat and the hills, which are two very valid concerns. However, there is a solution to those. So so I can start from the one that involves like the normal bicycle. So if, for example, you are using your bicycle to go to work, if your workplace invests in showers, for example, then that's the heat and the hills won't really matter because you're getting exercise, you can get sweaty, but then you can go to work and just have a shower, and then you're done for the day. The second option, which I personally use myself, is through a pedelec or an e-bike, but a pedelec is a more accurate term. So, which is basically a battery-powered bicycle. So you don't have a throttle or a gas like lever. You just cycle, and then the battery supplies more power to your cycle. So effectively, what this does is, if you have a hill, it feels like a flat road.
Wow, so it actually feels like a flat road.
It feels like a flat road.
Incredible.
It feels like a flat road. I mean, you feel the difference because on the flat road, it helps you even more. So then when you're on a hill, it feels like a flat road on a normal bicycle. But
How good.
It's amazing. And when you're riding a pedelec as well, you're moving forward constantly, and you're not making much effort. I compare it similar to, like, the effort is similar to walking.
Wow.
But because you're going at a much faster speed, then you have the breeze in your face, so that sort of like helps the heat. So
that actually sounds really good. Like anyone who's watching this and has not tried cycling in Malta, pedelecs might actually be the way forward here. I love that idea actually. Yeah. Daniel, thank you so much for coming in this evening. Guys, if you want to talk about the cycling community, if you want to join the group, find Rota on Facebook. It's a very lively and thriving community. Very good peeps, so definitely check them out and let us know in the comments below what you think about cycling in Malta. As always, that brings us to the end of today's episode, and have an evening full of lovin'.